Hey Hodies, welcome back to my channel. My name is hautemesstom and thank you so much for clicking on today's video. Today we're going to be talking about some makeup items that I either didn't like at all or I did kind of like but then figured out ways to make them work or just kind of like fell in love with them over time. And I just want to talk about them. A couple weeks ago I did a video called products that skipped the line, and those products were products that I put on my face one time and I said basically love at first sight, where I was like, this is a makeup item for me. This is a makeup item that I love and I can't wait to use again and again and again. This is stuff that I kind of wrote off at first and was like, I don't know that I really like this. So we're gonna talk about why I didn't like it initially, what I've done to change my application method to make it really work for me, and how I feel about these items now. Let's jump into this video. So I have some application footage of each of these things. So the first item is the Ritual Defeat Thorn Oil Priming Facial Elixir. Now I have oily skin. If you happen to be new here, my skin's pretty oily, but also something that's important to know that I like glowy skin. I don't mind my skin actually looking oily with makeup on it because my oil is going to break through anyway. So I find that mattifying is a fruitless task. And I know that there are people with dry skin who desire to have skin that looks like mine. So I'm just going to embrace it. So this product, however, it did take me a little bit too oily. I still didn't really understand it. And in the packaging, it does recommend to apply 5 to 10 drops. I think I tried 7 at first to try the in-between. It was too many. And then I tried 5. It still felt like too many. And then I just tried 3 drops of the elixir as a primer. And that seemed to be the happy medium. It was enough drops to do something, but it's a few enough that my oily skin took in the oil and accepted it. And it became kind of one with the skin and did all of the priming things without being too oily, which, is a problem, especially at the start. Whenever you're just putting your face on, you don't really want your face to be that oily when you're just putting on your makeup. I have just found over time that this is a very, very lovely product, especially if I have some dry patches on my skin, which, even though I have oily skin, can sometimes still happen. Certain areas of the face can be a little bit dry, have a little bit of flakiness to them. So in the winter, it's not my everyday primer. I'm not trying to tell you that it is solved all the problems, but on bad skin days, wherever the bad skin problem is that my skin is feeling a little bit dry, a little bit dehydrated, this is the primer that I will reach for, just because it does that. Now I do recommend, however, whenever you're using this, just to do the primer a little bit ahead of time. Whenever you put this on, give yourself a couple of minutes to do some other things before you put on foundation. I think especially if you have oily skin. Probably if you have dry skin, you can go right in, but I find I like to allow my skin to receive this oil before putting on foundation. I like to give it a couple beats before I do that. But yeah, this is a lovely product. I like having it on hand. I've tried a couple things like this. I think the Great Skin from Merit is very similar. A lot of people like to use that as a primer as well. I ultimately like this one better, and so that's why this one sticks around. And it's something that I don't ever see myself not having, but it's also not something that is always at the the number one thing that I'm using. But I'm glad that I figured out a way to use it. So what's kind of funny is that the next thing we're going to talk about is something that ended up working out better because of the thorn oil. It is the Merit Perfecting Complexion Stick. So the first time I tried this product with the Bobbi Brown Vitamin Enriched Face Base, I remember thinking that it was really dry and hard to blend out, specifically in the areas where I have facial hair. Sometimes my facial hair is a little bit longer, sometimes it's stubble length like it is currently, but anytime I would drag the product through the facial hair, it was just really hard to blend out those lines. Then this came along and I used them together. And then I loved this foundation. I love the way my skin looks with this foundation, only under certain circumstances. Now, I've even learned even further that there are other ways for me to apply this that I enjoy, even without using an oil-based primer. Because like I said, I don't use the thorn oil all of the time. It's something that I use a lot of times just whenever I'm using this, or on bad skin days. Also, when I use a brush and I kind of wipe the end of the product on the brush and then press it into the skin with the brush, that also applies it really beautifully. So it depends on what I'm doing. So if I'm applying one of my other primers underneath it, I will apply the product directly to the brush and then put it on my face. If I do have the thorn oil on, then I will just do the regular stripes on my face. And I do like to wear this as a foundation. The only place that I still don't really quite love this product is right underneath the eyes as just kind of a concealer. I know that this product kind of boasts as being a multi-use stick product. I don't really like it underneath the eyes. And if I do take it all the way up underneath my eyes, what I do is I will apply some on the tip of my finger and press it in. It's still not my favorite concealer when I do that, but I find that it's serviceable and it doesn't crease or like, it doesn't act up too much. It just, you know, it's just not my favorite concealer. So typically I will avoid the under eye area whenever I'm applying this and then apply a different concealer underneath the eyes. But I think as a foundation, this is like a really, really beautiful product. It's very easy, very breezy. It just is, it's not, I guess it's not super easy breezy. I guess it's like a little bit fussy. I think it takes a little bit of time to figure out how it works best on your skin. I do have friends with dry skin that don't seem to love this. So I'm wondering if it is something for people with oily skin, like they can tend to get on it with it better. But the interesting thing about that is that typically stick foundations tend to work better on people with dry skin. That's just like kind of an overarching theme, a general rule of thumb, especially when I was working at Sephora. It's an interesting product. It did take me some time to get to know it, to love it. And, you know, I don't think that everyone needs to give everything that much of a chance, by the way. Like if you try something a couple of times and you hate it every time, that's, you know, that makes a lot of sense that you would be frustrated enough to be like, I'm just gonna pass on this. I'm glad I gave it a little bit of breathing room. I wonder if I had received this more recently, if I would have been a little bit more ruthless about it and would have been like, I would have written it off and then I would have also discarded it, but that's not what happened. And so this is a foundation that I really enjoy. Next up is a cream bronzer. Now, before we jump into this cream bronzer, I need you to know that I never disliked this bronzer. I have liked it better recently because of the tool that I was using. So I have the Chanel Healthy Glow Bronzer. This is the Soleil Tan Deep. And you can see that I've obviously used quite a bit of it. I mean, obviously I'm working my way through the center. Who knows how long it will take me to hit the bottom there. The first couple months I've used this product, I would apply it with my finger and then buff it out, or I would take my Sonia G Classic base and apply it that way. And while I still like it, it was always like a very intense bronze. And you might be saying, yes, it is the deep tan. And I understand what you're saying as well. Every time I like mess with this, I feel like the level of pigmentation always varies, but I think it depends on how much I'm applying, which like obviously makes sense. It's like, I think this is a buildable product. Now there, you might be also asking, why did you buy deep tan? You are not deep. I'm well aware of that. But there are 3 options. I think there is 3 or 4. And at the time I purchased mine, there were only 2. There was like the original shade that has been around forever, and then this shade, which is like them extending the shade range. It's probably not a very good extension if I use the deep one, and I don't feel like it's too much. Now I have it on my cheek today and I did the application footage. And the big difference was this product, and I kind of begrudgingly am saying this because I made a big stink about this when I first bought this. This is the BK Beauty 105 brush. So I think unlike the Sonia G brush, which is like very densely packed and all in one area, this is densely packed, but the bristles, you know, extend out on the end. And I think when it picks up this bronzer and applies it, it diffuses it a lot more. So something that I have found about this brush with cream bronzers that are not as pigmented, it takes too long to build them up, and then I go back to my Sonia G. But because this has like a little bit too much depth for me, having something that applies the bronzer very, very lightly really works in my favor. I don't think it's too deep on me right now. I feel like it applies just enough. And I do think that there could have been a moment of time where if I kept going and I feel like my bronzer always looked too heavy. Again, I love a bronze moment. Sometimes I do like to wear like, you know, an intense amount of bronzer, like that's the look, TM. Sometimes that's a mood, and sometimes I will do that with this. But I'm really glad that I found this combination because I like it so much more with this. Well, I can obviously, you know, play around with it with other brushes as well. A very big win in my opinion because this isn't cheap. I think I didn't finish my thought about buying the deeper one. The undertones of this one I like better. The undertones of the original one, it is like a little bit orangey, and I know that when you put it on it's not quite like that, but I preferred in this formula the more red undertones. Now I'm having a bit of a current crisis about how I feel about my bronzer undertones because like I do like this, but I also have some rosy bronzers in other formulas like powders that I do not like. And then I like the yellow, the more yellow leaning bronzer better. So I don't know what it is about this, but it is my preferred one and I'm glad I have it. The next product we're going to talk about is kind of the same deal as with the Healthy Glow bronzer. I always liked it, but then I had like a moment where I tried a different tool and I was like, oh my goodness, this is even better than I could have even imagined. It is the Bare Minerals bronzer. Now you may have noticed that I tend to like products that are maybe too pigmented for my skin tone. And the reason that I tend to like that is because I do love a bold blush, But I also find that sometimes in the lighter shades we lack nuance. It's like we get a pink and then like that's kind of it. So I also have Kiss of Pink, which is a very lovely shade. Kiss of Copper was the first one I purchased and I love it, and I love an intense orange blush, so that was not a problem for me. But then one day I had a commenter ask me how I get it to work, like they feel like it's too pigmented, and yeah, it was pretty intense on my skin tone. This person also seemingly through their picture had fair skin. And I was like, let me play around with it and get back to you. And so then I tried applying it with a not very densely packed fan brush. Change the game. It applies it so beautifully. Again, you may have heard people rave about these products, but in case you happen to have bought Kiss of Copper or even Kiss of Rose, which I think is even the deeper one, or the one deeper new shade, which I have not tried. I haven't even seen that one in person yet. But like applying it with the fan brush just applies it so gently and almost airbrushed. Like, and what I mean by that, like almost like as if it was sprayed on, like just gentle wash. You kind of lose, you get more blush than you get like the bronzer, but I never use these as like an all-in-one cheek product, which you can, but like that's not my gig, you know. I like to put things where I like to put things. It just made this more versatile for me, so I could wear an orange blush on like lighter makeup days, or you know, then use a denser brush on days where I like really want it to be the star of the show. And for that, I'm very thankful that that commenter asked that, and that I like eventually, like, you know, I tried to troubleshoot it for them, and then we landed on that, and it was just a match made in heaven. Okay, the next product I'm going to talk about. This is not something that I had to like work to make work easier or better for me. It was just a product that I need to give time. I don't even think to understand, but to enjoy. And it is, oh God, I can't believe I'm about to say this. It's the Charlotte Tilbury Beauty Light Wand, and I have the shade Spotlight. It's the highlight that I have on my cheek today. I besmirched this in my Charlotte Tilbury review that I did last year. When I say besmirched, I think this is my problem. My problem are these. I think that this is a perfectly fine product. I think it's in fact a beautiful product. I think the formula inside this container is lovely. However, this sparked some kind of phenomena. I want us to reel back in, like it opened up a Pandora's box that I did not want. And I think that a lot of people didn't want. I understand that this product being in this packaging was like revolutionary. I don't know if like Charlotte Tilbury had the patent on it and then the patent expired and now all of the brands are like doing their own sponge tip applicators or whatever. I don't know how it worked, but now every freaking brand on the planet is doing something like this, and I don't think liquid highlighter needs to come in this packaging. But also it's kind of gross, and you know, this one's mine. I use it just on myself. I can in theory pop the sponge off and then squeeze it out on whatever, but you know, whatever. Part of the appeal of this is that it's really easy to put on, but I think the thing that I've noticed, because I have tried a dupe of this, I tried the Flower Beauty one. Now, I'm not out here, I don't want to be the one. Kelly Gooch is the one, like, of the people that I know that tries all the Charlotte Tilbury dupes. But even Kelly Gooch seems to really like the Flower Beauty one. But I tried the Flower Beauty one, and I feel like I did not get out of that what I have now gotten out of this one. Now, it could have been the color. I think I had like a rose gold shade in the Flower Beauty. Like, I don't think it was the dupe of this shade or like a champagne shade. I don't think that's what it was. That also could have been part of the issue. This formula is really adaptable. So I've put it underneath powders. I put it on top of powders. It never gives me any fuss. It gives me enough time to blend it out. It's a really easy product to use. I just don't think it's a product that deserved the virality that it did. Like, it's a nice product. I'm gonna give it that. Like, it's a nice product, and I find myself reaching for it more than I ever thought I would. But I also think that kind of what happened was a couple of things. My preferences in highlighter started to change around the time I tried this, and I think because my preference in highlighter right now is something a little more just like glow from within, not quite like blinding highlight, which is something that I was like into and I still like, but it's just not something that I'm visiting as often as I once did. Then it kind of became a thing, like I was like, man, I really like that, and I reach for it. Yeah, like I said, I reach for it a lot. It's upsetting to me. I hate that I say that, but again, I don't feel like it's a product you need. But I feel like if you are gonna do it and you have the means to buy the Charlotte Tilbury version, I think it is the version to purchase. And I'm not trying to be like snob nose. I just, of the, you know, the one dupe I tried, I just think that like but also, this is coming from me, I have plenty of highlighters, so it's not the highlighter that I use every day. If this was like my only highlighter, maybe I wouldn't want to spend $40. So it's like a highlighter that I use every day. It would feel like a little bit steep. But if you have like a bunch of things to rotate through and you're gonna like visit this often enough, then just, I think the Charlotte Tilbury one is worth it. I think it's a nice formula. I'm gonna give her flowers on this one. Okay, the next one is like maybe one of the first products that I ever had that I had to like figure out how to work, and it took me some time. And it is the Chantecaille Perfect Blur Finishing Powder. Now you might be saying like, Tom, that's like a thing you use all the time. And that's truthful. It is a product that I use all the time. You can see that I have significant pan on it, but you can also tell that like this is a old packaging. Well, if you know anything about Chantecaille, I guess if you pay attention to them, this was a couple summers ago, I think, and it was a limited edition product that they have now. They keep it in their line. They always, but this used to only be like limited edition. They would release it sometimes in different packaging. Anyway, when I first purchased this, was using a brush like this. So like this is my normal powder brush. I just like would typically just sweep on product with it or like pat it in with a brush like this. And I was like, I don't know that I'm like getting blur. Like I don't know that anything is happening. But I knew that both Teresa is Dead and Michelle Wong really enjoyed this product. And whenever Michelle got hers in this packaging, she demoed it again because she was like, oh, I love this powder. Let me show you how I prefer to use it. And she used a Sonia G brush. Now you don't need a Sonia G brush because I actually bought a Wet n Wild brush shaped very similar to this. This is a Sonia G brush. Now I upgraded from my Wet n Wild brush to this one, but I just wanted to see if it would work. So the key to this product is buffing it into the skin. So you have to get a good amount of product on it, and then you have to like buff it in the areas that you want the blurring, and it does a beautiful job on it. And for me, on my skin, I find that I can't like do too much. Again, my skin's a little bit oily, but I never feel like it leaves me looking dry no matter how much I'm like buffing it into the skin. And I do think it gives me like a very soft focus effect, both in real life and on camera. I think obviously it gives me even more blur on camera than it does in real life, but it is just like a very lovely product. I've heard the Sisley powder is very nice. That's what I'm going to be trying after I finish this one. But you can see like if this is that old and the rate of going, there is, I mean, we're like certainly getting closer and closer. I can see some of that like woven pattern underneath some of the powder there, but it took me a while to figure out. I would say like maybe a handful of months before this became like the powder that I always was using. It took a while, but once I did, I was like, oh, well, I'll never look back. This is the powder I use. And so I don't really even talk about it too much as I'm using it now. I just like say I'm like doing my regular powder routine, which is a series of 3 powders. But yeah, this is always what I'm using, unless explicitly using a powder from a different brand that I'm testing or something. The next product is an eyeshadow product, and it's what I have on my eyes. And this might come as a shock to you, but it is the Hindash eyeshadows. Now, I'm going to be using the Beautopsy as an example, but I also have monochromats, and I do think what I'm going to say applies to both. These are incredibly firmly pressed powders, and whenever I bought this, I was coming on off the other end of like I had a lot of Anastasia palettes, and I have a lot of Pat McGrath, which are like they have kick up, they're intensely pigmented. And that's not quite what this is. And I had never, maybe besides Viseart, encountered shadows that were like almost like watercolor until you built them up. And I know that some people view that as a negative, but I don't, because it gives you like the perfect blend every time because of the pigmentation. But I don't want you to think that there's like no pigmentation. I think it's that they are firmly pressed, and I just wasn't adjusted to that whenever I first started using it. Now, some people do say that certain brushes work better in this formula than others. I use natural hair brushes, so I think that's what the preferred brush for this, but I also have seen Kackie say that some of the synthetic brushes that she uses make it even better to use, but she also is a fan of this product. Because of the pigmentation, I feel like I stopped, like I wasn't using it all the time at one point. And then I kind of forced myself to get to know it better. And then as I got to know it better and I got to know the formula better, and then I could see how good my blends would look whenever I use this product, I was like, game on. Like, this is so good. It is very comparable, and the ease of blending is very similar to Viseart. But I think that this is just like a little bit different, a little more special. And I think this blurs your skin underneath it like a little bit more than the Viseart does. It does like a lot of, it's just like a very forgiving formula. I think if you have textured eyelids, you're gonna find this formula just like glides onto your skin so easily. Not to say that other brands don't. I understand that the format of this is a lot for some people, like this gradient, you don't quite understand how to use it. And I'm here to say that you don't really have to use the gradient like that if you don't want to. I do mostly tap into the complete sides, and then I'll tap into some of them to mix them to make my own shades, and which I had done for a blush because I mixed the pink and this gray to make my own like gray pink blush, which was something I was on the hunt for some time, if you recall. You know, it does work. Yeah, and that's like another thing to this that's a really big benefit to it, is it could be your whole face, like minus lips. It could be your whole face. You can contour by mixing that with some depending on the depth of your skin, something deeper, something lighter. You can just kind of do whatever you want with it. And I really love that. I think that this is just like incredibly well thought out. And I do think that in the beauty community at large, I feel like that a lot of people like skipped on this because of like the way it looked or like their perception of how it would be. And I think it's one of those things that I think this needs to be celebrated more. I think the people who did purchase it really loved it and celebrate it. And then I think everyone else just kind of side eyes it. But I think this is a really great product. Monochromance, it's the same thing, right? It's the same thing where like the pigment is pretty light. And I think that because of it being colorful, I think the expectation with color is always like instant pigment, and it doesn't give you that. I think that what's great about those, because that's how I like to use eyeshadow now, is like the colors like build really softly like watercolors, and then if you take a dense brush and really pack it in, you can get real density. And I know that some people don't like the monochromance formula. I can't say too much. I haven't had that palette long enough to say anything, but I haven't gotten any hard pan in this palette, so I assume the formulas are the same. But I also do avoid sticking my fingers in here because I have seen when other people have stuck their fingers in these palettes that they have hit hard pan, so I just try to avoid that. Anyway, that's not to say what everyone else is doing is wrong. It's just I have avoided that because I've seen that. Utopsy and Hindash's eyeshadow formula, really fabulous, and I'm glad I gave myself more and more time, because it's almost anytime you see my Spotlight series, it's probably either this palette or the monochromance that I'm using as, you know, like the blend that I'm putting that sparkly shadow on. Almost 9 times out of 10. Like, I used to be my Viseart and now it's these. I don't know what's going on with this because it's been out of stock everywhere I've tried to link it. So I don't know what's happening. I don't know if they're updating packaging. I don't know what's going on, but I hope they're not getting rid of this because it's really lovely. I mean, not that I need to buy it again, right? Like, that's not what I'm saying, but like, I think more people should try it. I think it's lovely. And then the final thing is this lip product from About Face Beauty. So this is the About Face Cherry Pick Lip Color Butter. And this is the shade Nashi Pear, but it stands for all of the products. The big problem was I do not like the way this smells. And the first time I wore it, I didn't think it was anything special, but I didn't completely write it off because of the scent. I just like didn't like it. But then I wore it again for a different look. And then I was like, oh, my lips look really good with this. And I think I wore it for a really long time too. I think I wore it recording a Critical Sass, which sometimes take me up to an hour and a half to 2 hours to record them, to then edit them down to like 30-40 minutes. It was still on my lips, and it's like this glossy formula. It didn't give me the white ring, and I have more expensive formulas that are this kind of click up thing that do give me the white ring, and I think that's really impressive. And you know, there's probably some part of me, because that this is a drugstore product, I was like, it's not going to be as good as my other more expensive products, but in fact, it is better than a lot of the expensive glossy products that do a very similar thing. That's really impressive. Now it's a product that can I work it into my look? Now, I have tried to look at the shade ranges beyond the 2 that I received from my friend, and I don't think I like the shades that much. They all seem pretty intense. Their only light colors are like pinks, and I don't really like love a pink lip, so I don't want to purchase one of those. I think this is the closest thing they have to a nude. However, I feel as though it's just like too warm leaning to like be like a neutral, like a nude neutral that I can wear with anything. Like, I don't think this would look really good with cool tones. And so luckily my look today is very warm. I could make it very warm with all of the products that I use today. That's like my only thing. That I don't care for the shade range in its entirety, and I don't think that any of the Ultas in my area carry About Face, so I could look at them in person to like maybe understand them a little bit better. And I obviously could use online swatches, but also I'm the kind of person who believes in once I have a shade I like, I don't need all of the shades in a formula. I just want to use the one that I love the most and just continue using that. So I bet if I even bought some more shades, that's exactly what would happen, is that it would still be my favorite shade and it would be the only one I want to wear. Anyway, that's it for this video. If you happen to be new to my channel is mostly about loving my makeup collection as it currently is, and I try to be very deliberate about what I bring into my makeup collection. And I also do reviews. I am lucky enough to sometimes receive PR, and sometimes I just buy things to review for the sake of both of us to learn about an item of makeup. So I'd love to have you subscribe. Make sure to like this video before you leave it. Also, you can share it if you want to. And I am on patreon.com/hautemesstom, and there you can find some extra extra content from me. Talk a little bit about behind the scenes, like number stuff, YouTube there. I also talk a little bit more about my personal life there. And we're starting to do live streams there, like lunchtime live streams on Saturdays. That's like, we're starting that this month if you want to join them. And if you like podcasts and you know Kackie of Kackie Reviews Beauty, that's where our podcast lives. So you can check that out if that's something that you would be interested in. And then that's it, I think. Oh, I also have merch. You can click that down below if you would like merch. And that's that. Also, thank you to anyone who voted for me for Best of Pittsburgh. We don't find out until like September, so I'll keep you posted, but I appreciate all of you who voted. It's very, very nice of you. Thank you to my current patrons. You're the best. And that's that. Remember to follow your hote, and you'll find me. I'll see you in a video very soon. Bye-bye.